Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duckbricks. I'm Chris, and welcome to our latest episode of LEGO Awards 2022, the show where we count down the best of the best that LEGO had to offer this year in 2022 as a celebration of all of what LEGO has done this year. We kick things off by taking a look at the best minifigures, be they the blind bag CMFs or the actual minifigs in retail sets. Took a look at some different price brackets of LEGO sets, from the under $50 sets to the $50 to $100 sets. And now for the penultimate episode, we will be taking a look at the top 10 best LEGO sets over $100 that are part of licensed themes. This means that if there is an external license like Star Wars, Marvel, or DC that LEGO is actually contracting out to produce products for, they are going to be included in this list. It does not include homegrown, non-licensed themes like Ninjago, Monkey Kid, and stuff like that, because I feel like those deserve a different category to themselves. Because there's just so many amazing over $100 sets LEGO has put out this year, I had to split the category in two and give us two different top 10 lists of the best over $100 LEGO sets. And so without further ado, I think it's just time to jump into these. Just a quick note here, these are actually going off of the prices post the price increases. If you aren't aware, LEGO increased the prices on many of their sets earlier this summer due to supply chain issues and whatnot, and I will be going off of the most recent prices. So if there's a set on this list, there's a chance that maybe it started off as a $90 set, but was increased to $100 or something like that. That's where the price increases really come into play, and I just want to go off of the most accurate and up-to-date prices of these sets. But so with that out of the way, I think it's time to jump right into number 10. Okay, so coming in at number 10, we have set number 76408, 12 Grimmauld Place, which retails for $120 from the LEGO Harry Potter line. Now at first glance you might be wondering, well, why exactly is this set so expensive? Why is it on the list? It looks like a standard rectangular building. Well, you see, this set actually hides a secret. Aside from being a really nicely detailed apartment building with actually authentic replicas based on the movies themselves, this set actually does feature a very, very cool transformation feature, which is unlike anything we've really ever seen with LEGO before. Rotating the set back to the front here, you may notice that you've got 11 and 13 on here, but when you pull them apart, 12 reveals itself like so. This is a really satisfying mechanism to play with, and it's actually really ingeniously done in terms of the way everything comes together, and that's why this set absolutely made it on the list. Now, if you want to see a look at that transformation one more time at a different angle, this is how it works. So it pushes backwards like so, and then once you pull these sides like that, it just rolls forwards. It's one of the smoothest transformation mechanisms that I've seen for a building style of set. Sometimes these kinds of mechanisms are a little bit hit or miss, but what's really cool is that this 100% accurately reflects exactly how it appeared in the movies themselves, where they really tried to get everything fully flat and lined up, but then you can close it up just like this, and it disappears. Open it up again, and it's just so satisfying to continuously do that. In addition to that, this came with a ton of minifigures, but obviously the minifigs are not really the focus of the set. The focus is on the building itself, so let's take a closer look at the buildings. Now, the exterior is admittedly pretty plain. There's nothing too interesting going on in terms of the outside of the building itself, although you do have pretty much the same style of apartment type buildings with the different gray and black colored ones here. I do appreciate how some attempts are made to make this version look a little bit more worn out and worn down. You have some cracks up the top here, which are just physical cracks in the bricks themselves, where you have kind of slope pieces interchanged with each other. You've got some slightly uneven type of railings here, as well as just some detail that really just makes this feel just a little bit different from the other buildings. But overall, it basically is just another type of building alongside here, and it opens up like this. And it's very cool to open it slowly, and it really does kind of increase at certain speeds, so pulling it out really kind of makes the front pop forwards, and then you kind of have a slower going backwards, which is exactly how it appeared like in the movies themselves, which is very, very cool. So once this is all done, you can actually just see you can open the door and go up these stairs to the building itself. Rotating this around, there is indeed a full interior. Now, the interior of this entire apartment space is meant to be everything that you can find within the 12 Grimmauld Place kind of building. So you have a really nice sticker for the family tree of the Black family with kind of the burnt out ones, which were very prominent in the movie itself. You have some places for the characters to sleep with the Gryffindor flag on it, as well as just different chambers for the house elves and whatnot. And overall, this is a really interesting type of building that is, again, unlike anything else that we've seen from LEGO before. It is probably a little bit too much for $120. It's a really nice build and a really nice mechanism, but honestly, that's why it's number 10 on the list, because I feel that 120 is just way too much for a set like this. Otherwise, it is really charming. I wish it was closer to $90 or $100, but for 120, this is not bad and absolutely provides something new to the LEGO Harry Potter line in the form of a building that actually does reveal itself in a magical fashion. Now, I would love to see this motorized. I'm sure some people have done that before, but it's just so satisfying to keep on opening and closing it and letting the building slide backwards and forwards, and it surprisingly works really, really well for such a unique concept like this. Aside from obviously including Harry Potter, this set also gave us quite a few different characters, including some we have never actually gotten in LEGO form before. Like Creature here, which is a really interesting and unique new mold, which I'm honestly kind of surprised we've never gotten, as well as seeing new outfits of older characters like Kingsley here, which is his first appearance in a standard set as compared to the collectible minifigure series a few years ago. We have a version of Sirius Black who appeared kind of in the opening scene when you're entering the building, and of course we even have different variations of Fred and George, one of which is holding a massive long minifigure ear on a rope, which is obviously a tie back to one of these scenes in the movie itself. But I find it really funny how they actually printed a piece to represent a minifigure ear when, well, minifigs don't really have visible ears. All in all, the minifigure selection for this particular set was okay, nothing super fantastic here. I do like getting Creature though, that is a really nice one to get, but overall the minifigures to me aren't really the highlight. You got an Arthur Weasley as well and whatnot, but again, minifigures not really the highlight, the build is. So overall, just because of the unique concept and also the nicely detailed interior, the figures are quite good as well. But that's really the main reason why this is number 10 on the list, and now we can move on to number 9. Coming in at number 9, we have set number 21188, the Llama Village from the LEGO Minecraft theme, retailing for $130 US. This is a massive kind of scale version of the Minecraft llama, which doubles as an entire village, which is one of the coolest things about it, featuring all sorts of different side builds of different furnaces and shops and whatnot where you can actually fully explore, but also having a full interior for this Llama Village type area, which makes this one of the most unique LEGO Minecraft sets to date. Now, Minecraft has been doing a lot of these supersized animal type builds. We got like a pig house and a bunny farm and whatnot, but this is easily the largest they have ever done, and one of the coolest things about this is that they actually made pretty much every single bit of the space livable and playable. It's not just a giant statue of a llama, you can actually do a lot of stuff around it, and each of the little modules, like this one right here, for example, can just be removed and placed on its own. So if you do want to have, say, the shop stalls on their own, you can just take this, set it to the side, and just do whatever you want with it, much like many of the other LEGO Minecraft sets, which all feature their own different unique modules. Even this one on the back, which has a furnace, can just be removed like this and acts as its own module itself, meaning that you can really just do whatever you want in terms of changing around the way that the layout works for the building itself. You could put that one right there, for instance, and it overall is just a really interesting style of playset. But removing all of these side modules, we are brought with this kind of large final llama sculpture, which is actually really cool. Now, first of all, this does have a play feature to it, which I think is a very fun play feature to have. Rotating this around, you'll notice that there is kind of a red lever on the back there. So what we're going to do is just go ahead and activate that lever, and water will just come right out of the llama itself, kind of like the llama spit. So that is a pretty funny thing to have, and obviously something that you could set up in-game if you wanted to. They just go right on the top there through the head, so they just kind of are placed through the top, and they are ready to go. Now, moving on to the way that this all comes out, one of my favorite things about this is that it truly feels like its own playset, and everything does feel like a fully lived-in space for your minifigures and other Minecraft characters like the villagers to actually explore. First of all, you can actually open up everything. So what you want to do is specifically you can open these sides up, and that is a fully furnished interior, which is really cool. This is someone's house, which is a really fancy house, or maybe multiple people's homes, where you can actually see there is an aquarium on the inside, which is very cool to see, with a pufferfish there, 2 beds. You've got a bookcase with a creeper head in it, kind of as a trophy, and even a living room area. So you've got 2 different seats, a crafting table, and even a bread and whatnot, so you can really kind of play around with figures inside of this. And you've got this balcony looking outwards that you can descend out of down the vines. Everything feels like it is fully playable in terms of acting as a full-on build. You can also rotate it around and actually do similar things from the other side by specifically just removing this top platform. So this entire platform comes off to give you easy access to the inside of the model itself. And again, this is Lego Minecraft, so everything is modular, including this entire building, which just comes right off. This whole thing comes off. You can use it as its own standalone house, and then each of these is its own module. So what that means is that you could maybe make a really tall one on 2 legs, kind of continue to stack these. If you own multiple sets, you can really just keep on adding on to the system. And that's one of my favorite things about Lego Minecraft, is that it is a very modular system, and you can continue to just do unique things with the system and have each set connect to each other. There's even a bit of a space up in the neck area here for you to kind of sit and look at a map and observe your world. And then of course the head has that spitting feature, which is very cool. And I also really like how simple it is, but also it is deceptively complex in the way it all comes together. All of the bricks are used in very intentional ways to create the sculpting of the llama. And overall, this is just a really fun set to have as a large-scale sculpture. Now for $130, this is maybe a little bit high. It does come with a lot of villagers, which is really nice because villagers are in pretty short supply in the Minecraft lineup, and it does come with a ton of llamas, of course. But essentially the main part of the set, the main reason you're getting it, is this main building. And is that worth $130? Kind of like the previous set, I'm leaning towards no. While it is very heavy and does feel very solid, I feel like this should have been maybe $100 tops, $110 at the very most, but $130 just feels a little bit too high for me for what you're getting, which is why it is at number 9 on the list. And for what it is, the build is admittedly very simplistic. It is very fun to play around with, and you have all sorts of unique inner details, but it is, at the end of the day, very, very repetitive in terms of stacking blocks, which obviously makes sense because that's what Minecraft is all about. But I do think that this is definitely outshone by a few more sets on the list, and with that, we can now move on to number 8. And coming in at number 8, we have a set that is too large to fit on even my largest review studio. This is set number 76405, Hogwarts Express Collector's Edition, retailing for a whopping $500 US. Now this is the ultimate version of the Hogwarts Express. It is unlike any other version we have ever gotten before, featuring pretty much unparalleled detail and basically UCS level quality, and containing a ton of minifigures to represent scenes throughout the movie. Now, the set also includes a fully brick-built platform as well, which was really special to get. I honestly didn't even expect this to be really any good, but this was actually quite nicely built. I was pretty surprised at how good it was, especially because it wasn't even on the front of the box. I don't know what's up with that. The box art on this set was very, very odd, but this is a really well-designed platform for 9 3/4. You've got a nice UCS-style plaque for the particular set here with the Hogwarts Express. Apparently, the plaque unfortunately has some errors in terms of the type of locomotive and whatnot, which is quite unfortunate that LEGO keeps making mistakes like that, but obviously the focus is on the set itself and not the plaque. So this is a much larger train than usual, and as you can see on the custom brick-built rails, it is sitting on specially long rails, so unfortunately this is not compatible with any other LEGO train system. It really is only meant to be a display piece, but obviously since it is an Ultimate Collector Series, more minifigure scale style of PlayStation, it totally makes sense that it doesn't fit on these standard train tracks, because then it would just be a little bit too small. Now the engine itself has a pretty cool function where you can actually use a lever that was included to twist the top here and allow you to see the train kind of wheels moving, which is very cool to see that actually being fully geared up in system. Obviously it doesn't actually sit on the tracks, and it actually is elevated off the tracks ever so slightly to accommodate this function, but it's cool to see that if you wanted to, the train wheels actually do work. as expected, it is fully built up and looks very good when moving back and forth. Going into the details of the engine itself, you've got kind of a control panel right here for the coal, which is very nice. Of course, this is the coal area here. I also like how you have a space for the handle itself, so you can again plug this into the top here, and then you can use it to really watch those train wheels going, which is very, very satisfying to see that moving. And then when you're done with it, you can just take the handle off, and there's specifically a slot where you can just kind of place it right there. But the main feature is this passenger section, and this is the coolest part of the train station itself and the train set. Now, if you actually click on this here, you can see that each of the individual compartments is fully lit up, which is very nice. But of course, you would want to see the inside as well. So let's open that up here. These panels all come out, so this is a fully removable panel. You can also do the same for, each panel on the other side. So let's just take each of these individual windows out, and everything does fully open up. So first of all, before we even get into the rooms, I really do like the exterior of this, where you actually have a sliding door where you can use to access the passenger cabins. Very cool to see that. And of course, you have the areas for the students to walk on board and through the train there. Of course, they can exit through the door here, and there is still full amounts of detail still packed in to make this fully livable by minifigures. But going around to the other side here, you can actually see that each one of these areas is meant to represent a particular point of each movie. So you've got the first movie here, so this is kind of highlighting the very first movie, and then the third movie, so this one right here with the Dementors. And then finally, we've got one of the later movies, I believe this was 6 or 7, with Luna Lovegood and Draco in the back here. So very cool how you've got each of the different sections of the passenger cars fully illuminated as their own separate scenes, which I think is a very cool detail to include, and really elevates this beyond just the standard train set, because it actually has a lot of effort put into the display factors of the set itself. It is very easy to just close back up again. You take each of the panels and just slide them shut. Unfortunately, I guess the buttons for the lights are kind of an eyesore. They're not really that big of a deal to me, but it does break up the look and feel of the set by just having these very obvious buttons just sticking out of the top. I really would prefer it if they maybe were able to disguise it a little bit and have something on the top that was black be able to press down to not break up the color scheme here. But again, they were running on pretty limited space, so I do understand it. It is very charming to be able to actually see the interiors of the trains lit up, though, when you're actually looking at it through the windows. That is a very, very cool detail. I really do like the ability to do that, and really does make the train feel just a little bit extra special. Now, here's the thing. This set is a model of the Hogwarts Express, which retails for $500 US. And yeah, 500 is a lot. Is it worth 500? Probably. It is really detailed. It is one of the most detailed trains we've ever gotten from LEGO. It is packed full of special decals and special details and different types of scenes that you can play out within the trains themselves. It has an excellent station on the back as well as a quote from the final movie as well, which is very cool to see that actually being integrated. But for $500, it feels that was just a little bit too much for a Hogwarts Express set. I feel like LEGO could have made even a $200 Hogwarts Express set, maybe scaled it down a little bit, removed the station, and that would have been just as good. Sure, it would have been a lot smaller. This would maybe have been shrunken a little bit. Everything could have been shrunken down just by a little bit. But $500 places this outside the realm of possibility for a lot of buyers to be able to purchase. And I'm not a really big fan of how expensive it is, especially considering what you get is just the train engine. You've got this middle part here and one passenger car. In fact, when the price was revealed, a lot of people were wondering, oh, maybe it has a ton of passenger cars. No, it just has the one. A lot of bricks went into making this custom train stand, and a lot of bricks went into making the station. I would garner and say at least $100 worth of the price went into making this and making that. And I would have been totally happy with just the train for $400. I would have been even happier if they made an even smaller train for $350, $300, or even $250. So it's just the price that really bogs down this set for me. But everything else is just so good about how the model is presented. It looks really good on display. I'm very happy to have it in my collection. It's just way too expensive for most people being able to buy a set that they do like. With that, we can now move on to the next set. Alright, so coming in at number 7, We have set number 75574, Toruk Makto and Tree of Souls from the LEGO Avatar lineup, retailing for $150 US. This is the most impressive and largest set out of the entire Avatar wave, giving us a little bit of everything when it comes to Avatar in terms of the Pandorans themselves, from the Na'vi creatures to the actual dire horses, as well as one of the most large and majestic creatures we've gotten from the Avatar lineup, to of course a ton of nature. This is the ultimate LEGO Avatar World of Pandora set, and it really shows. Now, there are a few things about the set that I definitely think are really important to call out, and other things that I feel like they could have done a lot better. For instance, the set only includes 4 minifigures, where if you look at some of the other sets on this list, they included a lot more minifigures than just 4 for such a large set. Now that being said, they did manage to include most of the most important characters for the set, and not only that, but they also have the set packed full of glow-in-the-dark elements, where as you can see here, each of the bases of the tree have Monkey Kid staffs which are recolored to be glow-in-the-dark. You also have the crown elements being recolored for glow-in-the-dark, and even some radar dish elements also recolored for the glow-in-the-dark look and feel. Seeing these sets in the dark is really cool because not every single aspect is glowing, but you have just little bits and pieces of glow-in-the-dark color kind of popping out here and there, which really do add to the unique look and feel of these sets themselves and the nightlife in general of the world of Pandora. Bringing the lights back on, you can see just the specific elements which are glow in the dark. It is unfortunate that some of these kind of spring yellowish green or kind of the lighter pale blue colors are not, though. You kind of are misled almost into thinking that some of the vines will be glow in the dark, but unfortunately because they're rubberized, they pretty much are not. Still, that being said, I think one of my favorite things about the set is the way that the tree itself is built. You can see the wires wrapping around the tree, and you can actually see a whole bunch of different colors being integrated into the build itself, which of course this was a little bit repetitive, but honestly it wasn't even that bad, just attaching the antenna pieces to these particular vine and whip pieces to really have them cascading down the tree itself. One of the coolest aspects of the build to me is the inclusion of these staggered, transparent, clear LEGO Mario columns. Those were introduced for the LEGO Super Mario line around the same time in August, but they actually were repurposed for Avatar in these sets to really kind of sell the idea of floating mountains. And it does come up with a lot of realistic perches for the creatures themselves, which I think is super cool to see. You actually have the creatures mounted on the top here. Of course, they can be removed if you do want to remove them for play, which makes these sets really good for both display and play value, because you can just move them around. Now, removing it from the stand itself, I do kind of want to showcase everything that the set has to offer, because right now it's kind of all jam-packed together to accommodate this whole rotating movement here, but let's just get this off and really just display everything that is included in the set itself. Now, as you can see, one of the beauties of the Avatar theme is that everything is built in modules. So, attached to every single end of the foliage elements here, there are little bars and clips which can be used to attach it to the rest of the sets, which I think is a really nice detail. Zooming in here, you may notice that at the ends of each of these particular elements here, there is either a clip or a bar on the other side, which you can use to actually attach different modules from the LEGO Avatar theme, which I think is a really cool way to actually combine the set. Let's set aside the Tree of Souls for now and just take a look at the set as a whole all at once, and you can see that you have a very nice rock formation here. It kind of forms a secret entryway to the Toruk and the Tree of Souls itself, which I think is a very nice addition. Let me just reattach this particular section here, and of course you can just move these around however you want. You don't have to set it up in one particular way, and that's the beauty of the LEGO Avatar sets, is you can really just kind of do whatever you want with in terms of displaying the foliage. There is no one correct way of displaying it. The way this archway is built is actually surprisingly really clever. It does rely on a lot of studs on these side techniques to bind certain pieces together and really make it feel like one complete archway, and then working our way upwards you have a majestic sculpture for the Toruk itself, which is the main focus of the set. It is the largest and most majestic of the creatures, but taking it off here, you actually can see this does have a ton of detail to it, where you can just see this is a really majestic creature. The wings themselves are mounted on ratchet joints, so you can really just fold them all the way out,
back and forth. You can even move these back kind of contrail wing elements as well. And of course, you can have this standing, and you can just move the legs back into position and have them kind of standing, and even fold the wings inwards. So if you wanted to kind of fold these in to make the wings folded up, you can choose to do that, and just have him kind of on a landed position, which I think is one of the best parts about this particular creature, is you can just land him on the ground just like this. Now, there are some drawbacks to this. As you can see, if you are aware of some of the other LEGO Ninjago sets, the way the feet are constructed are very similar to Kai's Legacy Fire Dragon, which is both good and bad, because they have a lot of detail, but the unfortunate thing is, the feet don't have a joint to them, which means they are permanently attached to wherever the legs are pivoting, which means if you actually want it standing flat on its feet, you do have to have the legs in a very rigid and awkward position. The moment you actually try to splay the legs outwards, it's not resting on its feet. And I just kind of wish they just included a ball joint to actually mount the feet instead of just rigidly attaching them to the upper legs themselves, to just have a little bit more articulation, which probably would have made this a lot easier to pose up. Still, that being said, he is in no risk of falling over, because when landed you can actually have him placed on his claws on the wings themselves, which is a very, very nice addition. The entire thing, as you can see here, actually does fold up, so you can really have the wings folded up very much like in the movie, and they did introduce a brand new headpiece for the creature itself. You can see just a very large fin on the top and bottom for the creature head, and of course you can move the head up and down based on the ratchet or kind of click joints right here. Articulation, honestly, could have been a little bit better here. I definitely would have preferred to see just a little bit more articulation in the neck. I wish you were able to just rotate this piece. Unfortunately, it is attached by axles, so you can't rotate it. You can turn it around the other way, but I guess that was just to not knock over the minifigure here, which I guess has an okay point, but it's not really a big deal. I definitely would have wanted to have the head, say, mounted on a ball joint instead, because right now, he can't look back and forth without removing his head. He is basically just looking straight, which I think is a bit of an oversight for a creature like this. Even beyond that though, I think that the rest of the creature is quite good in his presentation, and in flight, 99% of these issues go away, because, well, being in flight allows you to not have to worry about the feet just being perfectly straight, and of course, it just looks so majestic in flight that this is just one of the largest creatures from the Avatar world, barely even fitting in within the realm of my camera here, and it just looks really cool in flight, and honestly, I forgive it for a lot of the mistakes when it is flying. That being said, a couple of things. I kind of wish the wings were mounted using friction add-ons and ball joints. Those would have been really cool to actually have been included in the model itself. So again, you could just get it into more interesting poses. Ratchets are typically always inferior to ball joints in terms of giving us posability, except for a few very rare instances. So I do think that is a bit of a drawback to the set itself. But overall, I do really like the shaping and construction of the creature, especially the front chest nostrils are really cool to see. Placing him back on the pedestal here, let me just get this back and aligned so he is now once again hovering in place majestically as he should. I think it's now time to bring over the Tree of Souls itself and take a look at that particular build. Now, I spoke a little bit about this in the initial turnaround, but as you can see here, this is the tree right here. And I actually really love the way that the tree is built. It reminds me of some of the LEGO floral sets, which are like the adult-oriented flower stuff, particularly the bonsai tree and the way it's built. Just a lot of really interesting techniques with the cords wrapping around it, kind of acting like vines or wood elements. You have a lot of studs on the side building techniques here to form the way the tree is shaped, and overall just a lot of really nice pieces being used in terms of actually showcasing the look and feel of the tree itself. And of course, the base utilizing the glow-in-the-dark elements is very cool because they have such a strong glow to them, especially right when you turn the lights off. This is just a really cool thing because a lot of important stuff happened at the base of this tree, which featured it glowing, so it makes total sense to have the glowing elements being centralized around here. Turning this back on, I think this is one of the coolest looking LEGO trees, and simply it is just a very nice expression of the model itself and an expression of the world of Avatar, and altogether, I think that makes this one of the best LEGO display sets if you're a fan of fantasy and nature. So I know what you're gonna ask. After all the nice things I had to say about the set, why is it so low on the list in terms of being only number 7? Well, you see, the thing is, this is a list of licensed sets over $100 with no upper limit. Simply, it's just kind of unfair because many of the other sets on this list are going to be focused around the absolutely gargantuan sets that LEGO released this year. From $400 to $500 or even $600, LEGO has been putting out larger and more expensive sets as the years go on. And this being only $150 is kind of affordable, at least compared to some of the other sets we're about to see. That being said, again, because this is just a relatively smaller set, it's why it's lower on the list. I think some of the other sets are just simply more technically impressive and more stunning to see on display than this particular build, even though this is one of the strongest standard retail sets that isn't a special direct-to-consumer. And that's why it's on this list. With that though, I think it's time we move on to our number 6 pick.
Okay, so coming in at number 6, we have set number 76218, Sanctum Sanctorum, retailing for $250 from the LEGO Marvel Superheroes line. And what's really notable about this set is that it basically is LEGO Marvel's first true modular building. Sure, we had the Daily Bugle last year, which was fantastic, but that was more of a large skyscraper that was technically compatible with modular buildings, but didn't really fit in with the rest. This, on the other hand, is truly designed to be a full-on modular building, which is really fantastic because it's the first time we've gotten it for Marvel. It seems that the set has been fairly popular, and I really hope that they're able to do this for more movie locations in the future, not just the MCU. And this is a really cool step forwards in terms of giving us realistic style buildings. Now, the Sanctum Sanctorum did include a ton of different minifigures, and to be honest, the minifigures weren't really the focus of the set itself. Some of them were actually repeats from the original Multiverse of Madness set that came out earlier this year with the Doctor Strange figure in particular, but for the most part they were pretty much all new, just some slight rehashes of older characters we've gotten. So let's take a look at those right now. Talking about the minifigure selection for this particular set, we actually got quite a few different variants of Doctor Strange himself, specifically from the Multiverse of Madness movie, like Dead Strange and Sinister Strange over there, which was interesting as a whole to get. For the most part though, to be honest, the minifigures were nothing super spectacular. We did get an update to Spider-Man's Homecoming suit, which was pretty nice to get. Sure, it is a little bit better than the original one, but to be completely honest, I would have much preferred an update to the Iron Spider suit, which did come in the original LEGO Sanctum Sanctorum set, which unfortunately did not have dual molded legs, which was quite a notable omission to the character. And sure, in the scene itself, he did appear in the suit in Infinity War, so it does make sense to have this in it, but I figured it would have been nice to actually get an update to that. Now, in terms of the villains, again, the minifigures are not anything super spectacular. There have been a couple of interesting ones, but nothing too crazy. We got another version of Scarlet Witch, which was nice because obviously she was in a slightly different outfit compared to the collectible minifigure series one from WandaVision. One thing I do like about that one is that the crown was printed instead of just the plain red, which was nice, but still doesn't look quite right in my opinion in terms of giving us the crown. And unfortunately, the legs were unprinted, but to be honest, there wasn't really anything needed there. The set also gave us an updated Ebony Maw, which I don't really think needed an update. I guess the head is more gray than kind of the bluish color, so that makes sense, but they did downgrade him by not giving him leg printing unlike the original one, so I guess you win some, you lose some. We also got the newer version of the Iron Man suit that he used in Infinity War that is basically unchanged, except he just has the newer style of helmet, which I guess it's good that they're going back and giving us those style of helmets because that appears to be the standard style that they're using for Marvel figures, but it does also feel kind of unnecessary to give us a variant of Iron Man that we've literally gotten before, just with a slightly different helmet. Lastly, we did get new versions of Wong, which was cool to get an update because we haven't seen him in this outfit since the original Bricktober minifig pack, which is really rare and expensive now. And we also got the Baron Mordo variant from the alternate universe, which was cool to get, but again, not really a super standout character in terms of design and printing. All in all, the minifigures here seem to go for quantity rather than quality, which was okay. I mean, the minifigures were perfectly serviceable. There just wasn't anything special that really made the set stand out as a minifigure that was extra detailed or really, really desirable. So coming back to the set itself, I am really impressed with the set because it really does give us a full-on style of modular building while having one of the most detailed and fun interiors possible, and we'll take a look at that in a second. But first of all, I do want to appreciate the amount of detailing that has gone into the outside of the building itself. I really like how the building techniques really captured this particular rounded or kind of angled edge of the building. You have everything kind of being mounted at a particular angle here, which is a lot harder to do than it seems in terms of completing this with Lego bricks, using a lot of really interesting techniques like studs on the side construction featuring these triangular, slightly newish pieces, and then we've got a lot of different angles in terms of mounting this wall. Now, the only complaint that I would have is that I feel like there was no reason for the set to cut off right here other than, I guess, budget. If the set continued all the way across, it would have made a lot more sense for a modular building. It would have kind of gotten rid of the alleyway, which I don't think was necessarily needed. Sure, there are a few things here that are kind of necessitated for the interior, like sliding these back and forth do actually change how the interior looks. But I feel like you could have taken out the knobs on this side and instead made the back completely flat. Instead, what they've opted to do is give us a ton of these different holes on the side of the building itself to mount flying figures on. So in since they gave us a ton of clear stands to plug in and mount figures, but to be completely honest, that doesn't add a ton to me, and I definitely feel like they could have accomplished this with just kind of a standard flat building to just actually extend all the way out. But then again, that would have upped the piece count by quite a lot. Now, one thing that is pretty cool about the exterior of this building is that they actually have these interchangeable portal areas where you actually can see they're using these transparent orange rings to represent portals. So this might be a portal into a different building entirely, but there you have it kind of tucked away. But what's cool is that each of these is modular. So this portal kind of sees Gargantos emerging from it, which I really do appreciate, and that can come off as well. So instead, if you wanted to do something different, you can put the portal on this side of the wall, and then put Gargantos on this side, or so on. And you can keep on doing that, and each of these segments is able to be moved around. You've got one that is for kind of a Captain America exhibit, so you can put it there, the poster would be the wrong side, but then you can just flip the sticker, so that is very cool how you can just move these around. This one's our closest one to an actual wall, and they have these different panels kind of scattered across the sides and back of the whole entire modular building, which makes it just really fun to play with and organize how certain things shape up. From the front, it is really good looking. I love the way that they were able to capture the very unique window of the Sanctum, as well as the doors themselves, and of course you have a lot of references to the movie, like the Bleecker Street kind of indication from Thor Ragnarok, and they even have like a Black Widow logo on the newspaper and whatnot. So all sorts of really fun and interesting details that were included in this particular set. Now, putting the portal windows back in the quote-unquote recommended positions, I think it makes the most sense here because that looks like a portal to a different room. This could be cool emerging from the wall if you don't have it connected to a modular building on the back, and then this is just fine as a poster going sideways on the top. I think it's time we actually take a look at the inside. And yes, of course, this isn't a references video. I'm not going to mention every single reference, but I think it's cool how they have like 10 Rings references, and they've also got some of the designer initials and a Nick Fury shield poster, as well as, of course, the shawarma and whatnot. So all sorts of great nods to the MCU in general, which is very cool. So we're going to take these starting from the bottom levels and work our way up. So much like all of the other modular buildings, the entire top two floors just separate outwards, which is very nice. And we can take a closer look at how the interior stacks up. So the interior wastes no time or space in getting us to the main staircase leading up to the sanctum itself. I do like the inclusion of the globe kind of in the Mysterio fishbowl headpiece. That is a cool thing to see. Of course, you have a world map indicating the locations of the sanctums and a poster of Doctor Strange, which is pretty similar to what you see in the comics itself. Now, even on this side, there's all sorts of little fun details to pose minifigures like a chair and his medical degree and a portrait of him and Wong. But then, of course, most of this floor is taken up by just this main staircase area. And there's a few details that you can see kind of on the back here. Let me just try to rotate this so it's an easier way to see that. But there are a couple things that you can see here. But what's very, very cool about this is that this is actually technically hiding kind of another level, because you can just remove this aspect, and then on the inside, you actually have a lot more details, such as the basement seen in No Way Home, which does have a bit of a side entrance as well. Very, very cool to see that. You even have a removable fridge, and that's really cool because this fridge is actually hiding a secret compartment as well. This kind of is holding the Tesseract for some reason underneath the stairs, so you've got that being hidden away behind the fridge, so very cool how they actually have all these details. And then of course when you remove this, you have a bit of a holding spot for the time zone, as well as what appears to be the Book of Vishanti, which is back there, some sort of magical book in the back which is locked up, kind of like in the library section. So that is cool how they were able to fit this in. Now unfortunately it is here that some of the limitations when it comes to space are quickly making themselves known. Because this doesn't extend all the way backwards, you really do feel like the space is very cramped in the middle, and that will only get worse as we go up, unfortunately. Now as for the next level going on, the next level is pretty interesting because, let me just place that on top of here. A lot of the next level is actually pretty open and allows you to get easy access to the stairwell. So removing this top part right here, let's just take a look on the inside of this particular building. If I can remove Gargantos here, this is a pretty good way to look on the inside. And as you can see, most of the second floor is actually just kind of empty, which is cool because it does make the ceiling feel higher. If you're playing with a minifigure going up the stairs, that feels very realistic to me and very cool. But then unfortunately it means that for the second level, there's not really a lot that you can do because it basically is just a very, very narrow space. Now, trying to kind of maneuver our camera onto the back here, let's try to get this at a different angle. Perhaps what could work is that if we just separate off this level, move this to the side, then it becomes very obvious exactly how much you are getting with the second level. And again, this is one of the limitations due to space. One of my favorite features is that you can open the door and go to other parts of the different dimensions or other parts of the world. So in here you've got like a portal to the dark dimension, which is really cool, and you even have the Watcher looking over it, so maybe this is like space or something. Sliding this in, you have the desert, so that kind of switches out when you have the door open, and then pushing the other slidable thing, you have some of the mountains. And while the desert and mountain stickers are maybe a little bit too simplistic for my liking, I really like this space one. Very cool to see the Watcher kind of in the background, and this is just a very abstract and cool looking part of space or a different dimension, so all in all that is a very cool Easter egg to get. Overall though, again, this is a very, very limited room here. Most of the places where you're going to be standing figures is actually on the lower level, where they'd be standing on this area of the stairs, whereas here it's really just kind of a rim level to make the ceiling feel higher, but again, kind of unfortunate how tight this is. Putting this back on the building though, I think it's time we take a look at the top level, which is the final level of this particular building. And I think the top level is probably my favorite. So moving on to the top here, let's just get the roof over here. Now this does thankfully have some amount of access with kind of this trapdoor-like gap here, but for the most part this is a pretty standalone structure, and this kind of features his office area featuring a ton of relics. It was very cool to get that Viking helmet in plain gunmetal gray. Thank you LEGO for giving us that. Did not need to, but that was cool. You have a lot of different artifacts from the Doctor Strange world here and there, a lot of Easter eggs from the movies, which is very cool, and overall this does feel like a pretty nice lived-in space. Removing the wall here so we can get easier access on the inside. It is, to be honest, a pretty simple area, but it is obviously very accurate to the movies themselves. It probably could have used maybe just a couple more details in terms of more display cases and stuff like that. But overall, it is a nice space, just something that isn't that easily accessed, especially once you place it on the top of the building. There isn't really an obvious way that it's actually supposed to be accessed. So that is one slightly minor bit of a con here. I guess Doctor Strange can just like fly up, but it doesn't really help it for other characters to be able to get up there. So then again, that's a bit of a flaw, but not really sure how they could have fit in another staircase into this small space. And with that, we've taken a look basically at the entire interior of the Sanctum Sanctorum, and yeah, this is a really, really fun and good model, although I am a little bit mixed on the way that it actually ended up in terms of size. Again, one of my bigger complaints is that it really does feel a little bit constrained for size in general. I really would have preferred it to be a little bit larger, which is why it is slightly lower on the list, because while it is good for $250, you can also get another modular for $250 that extends all the way here and has a lot more workable interior space that isn't licensed. So that is what it is. Still very cool to get a very detailed modular from LEGO Marvel, and let's move on to number 5. Alright, and coming in at number 5, we have a set from the LEGO Technic line. This is set number 42143, Ferrari Daytona SP3, which retails for $450 US. This set is so good, they literally wrote a book on the amount of effort it took to design it, all of the new parts that went into it, and then proceeded to sell the book for $70 and make it a very limited run, which I have my thoughts on that. But anyways, book aside, you can really see that this set is truly phenomenal, and a massive amount of engineering effort, parts effort, and research went into creating this set, and basically shaping it to be the most accurate Technic car as possible. Technic continuously puts out these large supercar model sets which continuously outdo each other year after year, and this is no exception because this was the time after we got our last one in 2020 with the Lamborghini. It was now time in 2022 to get the next one being the Ferrari, and may I add that every single piece that has a decal in this set is printed. There are no stickers, including a brand new Ultimate Collector Series style plaque which is printed, unlike some of the other Star Wars UCS stuff this year. Now, LEGO designers did state that all UCS plaques will be printed in the future, so that's nice, probably that will kick in 2023, but this is what really pioneered it, and as you can see, LEGO Technic designed a whole host of brand new elements specifically for the set, like the so-called comma piece and whatnot, and they really showcase how much effort it took to make the elements, to test them, to 3D model them, to mold them, which is just really interesting to see all of these pieces coming together to make the final product. Going into the build of the model, this was an absolute blast to build. It is always really fascinating to see just the amount of effort that goes into the gearing and mechanisms for Technic sets all around, and this is probably the most advanced Technic set you can get in today's day and age. With working gear changing, you can see that the pistons inside the engine actually move, which is unfortunate because those actually are pretty much covered up when you do the final build, so you can't really see them all too easily, but you can see right now the build process having all these different gears. What's very cool is that they actually have the controls being somewhat realistic, so you can change the gearing ratios when you're actually in the driver's seat itself, which is very cool. Now here's the finished model in all its glory. This is obviously the display plaque there, which is really nicely printed. It just feels so deluxe to actually have literally every single decal printed, which definitely is a big cost for them to produce, but certainly looks very good. Unfortunately, my plaque had actually some printing errors, so some of the text is offline, but for the most part, it looks pretty good. Now, on the inside of the model, you can see you can actually open up different sides of it, so you can open up the back as well as the front hoods and showcase kind of what that looks like on the inside of the model. Looking at the exterior shaping, I really like how they actually were able to combine system elements and whatnot, even an opening door mechanism, which unfortunately can only be accessed once the back hood is open. The buttons to open the door are not accessible once the back hood is closed up, but it's not a big deal because you can also just lift them manually. It is pretty cool how it has its own kind of mechanism for the doors though. Now, taking a look at the car itself, obviously like most Technic cars, this has suspension. There was a new suspension element developed for the set, which is really good, and turning the steering wheel inside the car allows the wheels to spin, making this 100% realistic to how an actual car would be driven. Now you can see it rolls very smoothly back and forth, and what's really satisfying is that when you're rolling it, you can actually hear the pistons of the engine going back and forth. It kind of feels clunk, 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 clunk in terms of the sound there, which is very cool. Now looking on the inside of the dash here, you can have two different switches to change it from neutral to drive to reverse, so that's what kind of this middle gear does, which is very cool because it basically alternates the way that the pistons move. So let's say you put it in drive there, you can lift this up and then actually see how this is rotating. Doesn't stay up all too well, but you can see it there when you're moving the pistons like so you can kind of see them on the inside. They're mostly covered up for the main build, but you can kind of see little bits and pieces of the pistons there. And I think one of the coolest things about this is obviously the steering wheel turns when you move the car wheels, but also you can see the gear changers right there. It's that new comma piece. Now when pressing the gear changers themselves, it actually changes the gearing on the bottom of the car, so if you flip the car over, you can actually see that, which is very cool to look at, seeing the different things switching back and forth, and this basically changes the variable speed of the way the car works. Now I saw in some reviews, I will admit I am no car expert, but I believe the gearing is a little bit off, much like like in the previous Lamborghini. Apparently the gearing is off just because they made the build process a little bit simpler and easier that way, but it really only takes a little bit of switching around. There are a lot of modification videos out there to actually get it fixed, so if you do want to have the gearing 100% accurate to kind of switching back and forth from 1, 2, 3, and 4 and so on, you can go ahead and make that modification. But just very cool to see just how streamlined this is, everything just moving back and forth really nicely in this particular fashion, which I think is one of the coolest things about this set. Now moving onwards, there were a number of brand new elements that were also designed for this particular model. Now, specifically, you have the wheel caps, which are very cool. You also have the wheels themselves, which are brand new, which I really do appreciate the inclusion of those in a very metallic silver coloring. And one of the best things about the set was the presentation of the box. The box itself had different inner boxes. It had a whole presentation to showcase the wheels in each of the individual sets. And overall, the design experience and just the build experience of the set was really one of the most deluxe LEGO products that you can have in today's day and age. Everything about the set felt like it was a collector's item, and for $450, you can see the amount of effort that went into this. I honestly think this is probably one of the more fair price sets on the list. Sure, it's really high. And the previous Technic supercars were not $450, they were closer to $350 or $380, some of them were even $200 something, so this is definitely the most expensive one. But along with that price tag comes pretty much unparalleled engineering you're going to find in a LEGO product. No other LEGO product out there in the market, and even in the past, is going to give you an engineering experience like this unless you resort to building custom mocks and whatnot. This is probably the peak of complexity for a LEGO build that's an official set. And I am very, very impressed by how everything came together here. It's just so impressive. The car looks phenomenal, the shaping is great, the new pieces really enhance the build, and everything being printed really lends that sense of authenticity that you are building a designer-style product. So overall, massive kudos for the set. It is still really expensive, and that's why it's not number one on the list, or it's not really high, because I do feel like there are better sets that honestly are a little bit cheaper than this, that offer a little bit more play factor or value into it, but this is still one of the best, most expensive sets of the year. But coming in at number 4, we have a set from the LEGO Icons Super Mario theme. This is set number 71411, the Mighty Bowser, which retails for $270 US. Now, while I was building this set, the thing that impressed me the most about it is just the sheer amount of engineering and articulation that went into making this set work. They could have very easily made this set a static statue, but the designers actually went above and beyond to give this legitimate play features and stuff that you can do with it, and it is a lot more posable and has a lot more functions than you may initially think. So first of all, I'm showing off the obvious. You can rotate the hands, you've got the elbow joints and the fingers, which look really good, but when you press buttons on the side of the shell there, you can actually rotate the head and open the mouth, which can fire a special dual molded firebolt from the mouth itself, which is such a cool surprise. I didn't really look too much into the promotional materials when I first built the set, so I wasn't really sure exactly what functions it creates, but as you can see, you've got buttons to move the mouth open and shut, you can move the head side to side, and it is just so impressive to see, and this dual molded projectile is actually really cool. I did not even realize that these brand new Technic spring-loaded missile type things were dual molded until I actually saw it from the set, because previously they've been doing them in these same colors, whether it be trans blue for water in LEGO City, or trans green for energy in LEGO Monkey Kid. Putting it back in the mouth here, this is just such an expressive and fun character build. And character builds are some of the hardest things to achieve with LEGO. I definitely think that it's one of the most interesting subject matters to actually be able to put together a set like this and really make him as expressive as he is right now. And being able to essentially operate him like a puppet, like as you can see, I'm just kind of gripping him around the side and sliding his head back and forth, is just so cool. Of course, you can also move his eyebrows, so you can maybe have him be scared, or maybe be a little bit confused. You can like raise one eyebrow, and you can also move the positioning of his eyeballs, so that completely changes the look. Look at that, he's completely looking off to the side there, and he's maybe shaking his head like, what's that over to the side? You make him look to the other side, maybe he's worried, looking off to the other side. Just look at how much that changes the expression of this character. Now he looks quite frightened and confused, and it's really a testament to the designer's skill that they are able to make this so posable. You can even make him go cross-eyed, maybe just got knocked out by Mario or something, and everything about the set is just so charming to me, and it's just a really fun buildable character to put together. This was released at pretty much the perfect time, right in time for the Super Mario movie, where Bowser is obviously a main villain of the movie to come out next year, which is really cool. And what's even cooler is that LEGO actually created 2 new elements for the set itself, where you can see on the back of the spine, you've got these tan spikes, which is really cool how they actually crafted a brand new mold for the set itself. The tail can wag back and forth using a newly recolored curved element from the Porsche set from the LEGO Creator Icons of Vehicles line. Everything comes together and is really satisfying in this construction because you can really see the geometry of the shell just looks really good. Now, the set had some obvious leftover budget, so they did put together the stand. Now, initially when I first saw the set, I thought the stand was just going to be some kind of random side build and I wouldn't really enjoy it. But I actually found myself really liking the stand, and obviously with Mario being a platforming game, it makes total sense that it does come with a stand itself for the character, so I actually kind of got my opinion changed. Initially when I was building it, I thought the stand was kind of worthless and really just an obvious piece of extra budget, but no, this is actually really good. You have the scannable part for Mario, which I just showcased, the towers of hidden surprises underneath them, and everything else about this model is just so well crafted, right down to the head being one of the most impressive pieces about it, because that head, the sculpting on that just looks so good.
Coming in at number 3, we have set number 10300, Back to the Future DeLorean, retailing for $200 US. And man, is this probably the best iteration of the DeLorean that we have ever gotten in LEGO set form. And admittedly, the bar isn't that high, but this is just perfect. Part of the LEGO Creator Expert or Icons 18 Plus vehicle line, this is basically the most accurate version of the DeLorean LEGO can ever do with today's bricks, featuring a really nice sloping kind of front roof plate here, which is really fantastic. You've got some expert shaping around the back to really add some nice detailing to the set itself. Of course, you've got the gull wing doors, which do open up, showcasing a full interior. And what's even better is that this set included a number of different pieces which you can actually rebuild to be able to use this as its different movie counterparts. So you have a full set of 4 different train wheels for the Back to the Future 3 version. So you've got the 4 train wheels there. You also have these particular railings for the front hood, as well as the Back to the Future 3 hood, which I just showcased. You even have a different topping for the Back to the Future 1 version of the top of this thing before it's replaced with the Mr. Fusion from the second movie. And you even have different sets of license plates with the new version of the future car from the second movie. Now, this set also has probably one of the coolest transformation, I guess is what I would call it, features that I've seen in any LEGO set. Moving it off the stand here, you may notice that this actually is sitting on 1x2 transparent bricks. And the reason for that is because there's actually a lever at the bottom that allows you to actuate the function of the wheels. So moving it to the bottom here, you'll notice a very large red lever where you can simply turn it and the wheels will just snap into flight mode and driving mode. That is so cool to me. I'm really glad they had this feature, and obviously they could have just easily mounted the wheels just kind of in a regular stance and you had to move it yourselves, but actually hooking up to a full-on Technic feature for this type of function is the icing on the top of the cake, which is really nice to see here. Now, of course, this does have a fully detailed interior. The only complaint is the doors don't really hold up. If you kind of move it around, sometimes the doors will just kind of collapse downwards due to weight. Like, as you can see there, this one's already folding down on its own, so not quite enough friction there, but obviously you can just hold it up and then maybe just put a bar or something to keep them up. You've got the Mr. Fusion, which is actually a brick-built type of thing there, and inside you also have the Shield Eyes from Light flux capacitor on the inside, which is actually fully brick-built. Very nice to see that, using a harpoon piece of all things. Very cool, because obviously the original LEGO DeLorean set for the Ideas line just had it printed, so I do really appreciate how they do have that as a brick-built type of thing. Now, you can see here that on the inside, it's a little bit hard to see from this particular angle, but you do have all of the different dates where you can actually see what time you're setting the time machine to travel to, which is very cool, very authentic to the Back to the Future movies. And then, of course, just that very satisfying feature to really make the car switch from flight mode to driving mode. And it is so fast and looks so good, especially when slowed down. Now, onto the back here, there's a lot of really interesting types of wires and stuff going on. Now, specifically, these back wires are supposed to only be attached for the Back to the Future 1 version, but I figured why not leave them on? You have this kind of conducting rod here for the second version, which I also wanted to leave on here. And what's even cooler is there's a little button. You can press the button here, and on the front inside of the car, the flux capacitor actually lights up, which is a very, very cool feature. I love the way that's done. They were able to integrate some light functions into the car itself. So overall, this is just a really impressive model, especially in the way that it all comes together. Now, in terms of the price, this is actually a really well-priced model. For $200, it is basically in line with the rest of the Creator Expert vehicles, and for once on the list, this actually does feel like good value. A lot of the sets we looked at on this list were admittedly very good sets, but not very good value. This is not only a good set, but it's also priced really fairly for $200, especially with a license fee and all that. I think this is about worth exactly $200. They could have probably even charged $210 or $220 for a car of this quality, where just so much effort went into really just capturing the iconic curves and shaping of the vehicle itself. Everything comes together really nicely, and it certainly looks a lot kind of smoother than you would expect, especially for a brick-built Lego car, where sometimes they've been hit or miss in the past. But with that, I think it's now time that we move into our top 2 best sets over $100 that are licensed of 2022. Let's go. Alright, and coming in at our number 2 pick, we have set number 75331, Ultimate Collector Series, the Razor Crest from Star Wars The Mandalorian, retailing for $600. So yeah, this is a big one, and is easily the biggest set on the list. But I think this absolutely deserved to be on the best sets of the year list just because of how marvelous the set is in its construction. So starting off with the figures, you get a brand new version of the Mandalorian, complete with a new printed helmet, which is really good, as well as that new head for the Pedro Pascal kind of face underneath, plus the hairpiece. He's got printed arms as well to go alongside his Season 1 picture, which is really, really cool to see that. Of course, it also includes Grogu's baby carriage, as well as one of his bounties, plus Kuil the Ugnaught, which is a really cool, interesting new mold to get. Maybe it doesn't feel too much like LEGO to me. I probably would have preferred they stayed a little bit closer to the LEGO style, but it is certainly very accurate to the character. But let's be honest, the focus here is not on the minifigures, as good as they are. The focus is absolutely on the set itself. And man, is this a stunning model. So the Razor Crest was definitely one that was really interesting to build in terms of a large-scale LEGO model, because it's a lot more complex in terms of angles than you may imagine. Now personally, when The Mandalorian was first airing, I actually purchased the instructions for a custom mock and built a massive UCS-style version of the Razor Crest, and that one, to be honest, was not even as good as this, because that one didn't quite capture the shaping of the back of the model. It really fell apart quite a lot in terms of the angles, and honestly, building that made me appreciate just how hard it is to actually replicate this ship in LEGO form. You see, the shapings of the side panels on the ship are not vertical up and down. They actually are angled outwards, which makes them a lot more prone to breakage, which means that this really had to be built with a very strong interior. You've got the ramps that open up on the side, and one of the most impressive things to me is just the shaping of the way the wings attach and how it kind of curves outwards to splay out for the armor on the back sides and the undersides of the ship itself. Now, moving on from the front cockpit there, you can actually see the inside of the cockpits are really, really detailed. One of my favorite details are these carbonite freezing blocks for his numerous bounties that we kind of saw in the first few episodes of The Mandalorian. You actually have useful stickers here that can be used for other carbonite blocks, and they are special stickers for this. You've got kind of one of the members of Greedo's species, a Rhodian, trapped there, as well as a standard human on the next one. And these are really simple to just clip right in. They're super easy to remove and take back out, and while it would have been nice to get kind of specialized carbonite block pieces like we get with Han Solo, it makes sense they didn't create new molds for just random people in carbonite blocks, so I think it's totally okay to do that. You've also got what I guess is a bit of a space to suit up here, a space to hold Boba Fett's armor, which is quite interesting to see, and then of course the aforementioned weapons rack, which boasts a variety of different Star Wars and sci-fi like weapons, which is quite cool to see them all featured here, featuring from the Star Wars universe. Other stuff includes some food packs for Grogu itself. Of course, you've got that baby on board Grogu sign here, a power block, as well as just a lot of interior detail because you also have a bed for Mando himself, which is very cool. You can actually remove the bed itself, so you can see they actually built some interior wiring detail underneath the bed. Maybe it's really fancy, he's got like a heating coil underneath his bed or something, but I find it fantastic that they actually included that much detail that honestly is not even going to be seen. The bed is covering it. So it was just a nice surprise to have all sorts of little stuff like that tucked away in the build itself, where you just have small details that certainly were not needed to be included, but were really nice to be included nonetheless. Placing the platform back on here for the ship itself, you can see the upper canopy is quite good. There is ladder access to get down to the lower ranks, which makes total sense because you do want to be able to access those, which is very nice. And even the opening door, which is the cherry on top. Just everything about the interior is pretty perfect to me. Now it is also very easy to just put the panels back on, which you can see right here, super simple. And again, this is number 2 because it is so detailed in terms of the interior, exterior, and is the perfect representation of an in-universe craft. It's just a shame that this seems to be no longer relevant because, well, I mean, everyone who's seen The Mandalorian Season 2 knows exactly where this ship is right now. And that's probably a trash heap, but still it is cool, better late than never. But this is $600, and I admit that this is certainly not something that a lot of people can afford. It is really, really expensive and is quite outside the price range of most people buying LEGO sets. Which is why for this list, I wanted to make the number 1 pick something that is at least a little more affordable, but still provides excellent play value, and in my opinion, is the best over $100 licensed set of the year. And so without further ado, I think it's time we jump right in to number 1.
Okay, so coming in at number 1, we have a set that thankfully won't really break your bank if you want to pick it up, at least for a set that's over $100. This is set number 10302, Optimus Prime, retailing for $180. Now this is the result of a pretty historic collaboration between LEGO and Hasbro, who are historically very, very tough competitors with each other. They typically never ever work together. It is very rare to see a collaboration like this, but eventually someone realized that they could make money from making LEGO Transformer sets, and I'm very glad that whoever that was did realize that, because that gave us what I consider to be the best licensed set of the year over $100. Not only is this priced fantastically, $180 for a recognizable icon from one of the world's most iconic toy and media franchises, but it's also a really, really good set with a specific mold created specifically for the set itself, for the mouthpiece, which is also a very useful LEGO piece, a full-on transforming feature, which obviously you're making a transformer, it has to transform, an information plaque, you have an alternate sticker for when it's in truck form, even one of the Energon cubes, and you've got different weapons like the axe and the gun, which thankfully they did include the gun, which is brick built, even though they didn't want to include brick built guns in the Avatar sets because they were too violent. So I don't really know where LEGO's line is on that, but thankfully, they did include all the accessories, even a jetpack that you can add on, and everything about this is very authentic to the original G1 toy as well as some of the original cartoons. Now, I will fully admit that I am not the biggest Transformers fan. I really only saw the movies, which I understand are probably the worst things to see out of the Transformers franchise because they're just not accurate to what the source material is whatsoever. I feel like if I wasn't into LEGO, though, I probably would be into Transformers. They're pretty close in terms of kind of being setting their own worlds and stuff, and they're very, very cool to see, which is why I was very happy to see a collaboration between LEGO and Transformers, and hope that this means that LEGO will continue to do collaborations with Transformers, maybe for that new movie. Now, setting him aside from the base itself, obviously, the most important thing that we want to demonstrate here is the transformation feature, and man, is it really good. So this is actually a little bit easier to transform, I believe, than the original toy, which is very interesting to see, but there's a few things that you can do with the action figure before transforming him. First of all, you have these arms at angle back and forth, which are very cool. Everything is done on ratchet joints, which is alright. I definitely would have maybe preferred ball joints, but ratchet joints for a model like this aren't too bad because you can actually get them to lock into certain areas. Now, the accessories themselves can just be removed, so you can take the gun off here, and there you have it. That's just kind of one head, and you can take the axe off, which just kind of plugs into his wrist here. Very nicely done axe. I like the way it really does feel like it's made out of energy, which is the idea for it. and then his hand just kind of folds outwards like this, and there you have it. This is the standard kind of Optimus Prime Transformers look and feel for him. Now, everything, again, does fully transform, which is very cool. Beyond that, you can also open up the chest itself and have this as a removable detail. That's kind of the matrix of leadership there, which is very cool to see this being able to be removed from his chest, placed inwards, and then closed up. It's not even attached, it just kind of sits in there, which is very cool. And then, of course, the jetpack itself does also come off, so when he's in truck form, he obviously wouldn't have the jetpack on, so this just pops right off. It just clips on like that. And there you have it. This is basically the standard base model of the Optimus Prime build. So now for the moment you've all been waiting for, how exactly does this transform? Well, it's actually very simple. First of all, straighten up the legs and push them together. They should clip shut like that, which is pretty accurate to the original model. Then what you do is you fold the fingers outwards, rotate the hands like this, and you move this entire assembly up so you have some room to rotate. You then spin him around completely backwards like this. This is just all in turntables, so it does rotate very nicely like so. And then the legs are actually mounted on these new 2022 joints. So what you do is, first of all, let's turn this around where this whole piece goes backwards. Everything bends down like this, so now he's kind of starting to form the start of the cab here. You get the arms fully mounted up like so. So that's kind of the next phase of the transformation. And then you just kind of, let's get this stuff out of the way. You push him downwards. So now it is in rolling car form. You push this part downwards here. So you've got kind of the front engine or so of the truck like that. And then what you got to do is move the arms themselves backwards. The arms just slot in like this. And then they bend backwards like so. Super, super simple, where you just have the arms bending backwards. And then what you do is you actually get it such that these roll like this. So you bend it inwards like so. Get these arms, my apologies, the arms, back arms bend backwards, front arms bend forwards like this, where you've got this type of construction right here. You have to bend the hands downwards to make them fit. And yeah, there you have it. This is basically the full transformation. And of course you bend the legs downwards. There you go. So this is the full-on transformation for Optimus Prime. And man, does it look really satisfying to actually transform into truck mode. Obviously these silver bits also rotate like so. And then by itself, this is already a pretty good toy. And you can see that this just acts as the standard truck for Optimus Prime, which is very cool. It just rolls along like so. And that's really all you need to do for the transformation. So it is incredibly simple. Everything just folds down in a very satisfying manner. Oh, you've also got, I believe, these little bits also kind of extend down just to provide some extra coverage, which is very nice to see here. Let's just move that down there. And yeah, there you have it. That is Optimus Prime in truck form, which looks really, really cool. And that's all you need to do. Also, you just swap this piece out. So you're just supposed to take this out here and then put this piece on like so. And that is the transformation feature. So for $180, this is a really, really impressive looking model. And also what is very cool is that even one of his accessories fits. The gun itself can literally just be placed like this. And there you have it. This is fully transformed. Very impressive how they managed to fit almost everything in for the type of transformation feature that you want to see for Optimus Prime here. So overall, I think that this is probably one of the best valued sets overall in terms of a licensed set that has a transformation feature that is of a recognizable property, that works really well, that fully transforms as you saw there, which is very, very cool, and definitely one that shows a bright future ahead for collaborations with the LEGO Group and other toy properties, actually allowing their licensed IP to be made into LEGO sets. I like that Hasbro and LEGO have kind of come to the realization that they can do a lot more together rather than competing with each other constantly, and so they really were able to collaborate with this, and hopefully this is a sign for a bright future ahead. For $180, again, this also is by no means one of the more expensive ones on this list. It's actually one of the least expensive sets on this list, which is why I wanted to make it number one, because not everybody has $550 to $600 just sitting around to spend on LEGO. While $180 certainly isn't anything to scoff at, it certainly is a pretty large amount. It is a lot cheaper than a lot of the other items on this list, and I certainly do appreciate that even a set that isn't the most expensive, that has all the effort put into it in terms of development and cost and parts, still can be one of the best, if not the best, licensed set of the year. And so with that, we've wrapped up our top 10 best LEGO licensed sets over 100 of 2022.
Alright, and with that, we have summed up our list of the top 10 best LEGO sets that are licensed over $100. Now, this was a really hard list to put together, and I think this definitely will prove to be a controversial one. Again, this is just my opinion, so do let me know down in the comments below if you agree or if you disagree. I'd love to hear your thoughts and especially your experiences with these sets themselves. Now, there are some notable exclusions from this list, such as the Hulkbuster or the Black Panther bust, and I think there are a lot of reasons why they're really good sets, but maybe didn't quite deserve to be in the top 10, thanks to a lot of accuracy issues or the subject matter of these sets themselves just not really making too much sense. But overall, I hope you enjoyed this list, and thank you all so much for tuning into Duck Bricks. Be sure to stay tuned every single week for a brand new LEGO Awards video, where next week is our grand finale. We will be counting down the best over $100 non-licensed LEGO sets just in time to wrap up the holidays and celebrate the end of 2022. Thank you all so much for coming along this journey. I hope you've enjoyed these videos, and let me know down in the comments what do you think of this series. Like and subscribe for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming your way very soon, and bye for now.